Hello and welcome to Soho Radio, and it is time to introduce this month's guest, Daudi Matsiko. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm so happy to have you in. Because your record, The King of Misery, really just was one of those January headphone albums. It was very comforting and very beautiful, and so thank you.
Thank you for listening to it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for
it really
coming.
means a lot.
And also, you've come all the way from Nottingham, which I did not
realise
that I was making you travel.
It's not a hard trip. It's happy to do it.
So tell me a bit about how things have been since the release of putting the record out in the world.
Really exciting. Yeah. Also, I've been very moved by the response to the record. I kind of released it, and I think whenever an artist puts out work into the world, you kind of just have to accept it's just going to be what it is. And so whether it goes well or the things that you want don't happen or not, so I had to kind of just hold my breath and just be like, okay. And I've got nothing but gratitude for everything that's gone on since. We've sold some records, we've done some gigs. I say we, it's me, but I've got friends who help me out, who a nice little team behind the project. I set up my own little label to do it with Adam Scrimshire.
Amazing. I know him.
Yeah, so my label is called Really Good, and it's sort of powered by Albert's Favourites, and also I'm a participant of Power Up, which is it's just an initiative and really force for good in the world. It's kind of funded by the PRS Foundation.
Yeah.
And they've been really supportive and really enabled me to give this record the best shot I could give it.
Yeah. And has there been that palpable sense of people really connecting with it in quite a deep way?
Yeah, it's been really emotional, to be honest. I am, when I say I'm really moved, it doesn't feel like, I feel like it's an understatement. I'm just every gig I'm floored by the love in the room, because it's the album's called The King of Misery, and it's some heavy stuff on there, but the thing I wanted out of the record was it sounds a bit cheesy, but it's a really loving album, and to see that reciprocated is I get a bit it's just so lovely. I'm just so grateful, and I'm so glad that people are finding it and responding to it the way they are.
Yeah, I love that you called it The King of Misery. I just love a bit of miserable music. Honestly, whenever people are just like, "Oh, what are you listening to lately?" It's just like, if I just tend to go back to all the really sad stuff. I guess I do listen to music for comfort. I do listen to a lot of new music, and I do listen to a lot of electronic stuff. But a lot of the time, if I just want comfort from music, I'm listening to the sad stuff.
Yeah, and there's I think there's a real school of thought out there which says that these sad tunes kind of help us to feel better. Yeah. There's it has some people think, oh no, sad music can make you feel sad. It's no. It's it puts something difficult to hold in a holdable format. You can hold difficult things. Being able to write about the stuff I write about on the record and hear them in music made it so much easier to say. Do you know what I mean?
For sure. Well, it's your way of expressing, isn't it? It's a way of getting those feelings out and just kind of expressing, making sense of the world.
Exactly, and just to hold grief in your hands and just without fear, or sometimes there's a song called "I Need You to Stop Calling My Phone."
Yeah.
And I don't even like talking about it very much, because it's just kind of the less I say about it, the better. But it really takes a difficult thing and it made it manageable.
Yeah. And what you said about the album being a sort of snapshot of an existential crisis almost, but it's diary entries.
Yeah.
With that song in particular that you mentioned, that really kind of came across as just an outpouring of how you were in that moment.
So it's I'm really great. I'm just so grateful for this record.
Yeah. And do you think as well, I mean, we all have gone through so much grief over the last few years, and I think maybe partly why I connected with the record so much just at this particular time, hearing these tracks in January. I'd lost my dad just before Christmas.
Oh, so sorry.
And so I was like, thank you. But yeah, it was just like one of those where I was just like, I wanted to be held by music. And this album was one of those albums that just in that January, I was like, gotta get through the longest month and not feel too sad. This album did it.
Like that was almost the intention for me. Like, if I had a selfish intention for this album, it was like the beginning of the record, like track 1, it's like I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And by track 10, I've gotten out of bed.
Yes.
And like, sure, I've only made a cup of tea. Some people might not call that a success, but I've done it. Yeah. I have brushed my teeth today. Like, it's kind of like
win.
You know, so it's a small step, and it's a companion. You know, that's kind of what I hoped for it. So I'm so it really means a lot to hear what it means to you. So thank you.
No, 100%. It's a really beautiful thing, and I think, you know, we all need that misery sometimes in our life just for the cathartic nature of music and how healing it is. So, and I'm wondering how you said kind of holding grief in your hand. I'm wondering, what process is it that enables you to like articulate these really raw, deep? How does that kind of manifest in the moment when you're writing a track? Does it just pour out of you, or is it quite a strained process, or is it very easy?
It's not easy. It doesn't quite. Well, it's so funny. Like, it doesn't quite make sense. Like, degrees of difficulty are hard to articulate, but I knew what I wanted to make with this album. Like, I'd gone in the time that I was writing when I was writing those songs, I had a real heaviness about me, and I was grappling with my own mental health and what that meant for my future, and I just didn't want to do anything else. So it wasn't so much that I had this idea for the album, I had this plan. But I just knew that I didn't think anything. I thought saying anything else was unimportant for me personally. Like, yeah, I've got a song called like Sandwiches, which is also about a mental health breakdown, but it's a bit of a bop, and then it kind of deteriorates into this kind of emotional space, into an emotional space. I don't know if it's a weird sentence to say. But I didn't want to I didn't want it to be an upbeat record. I wanted it to really stay in a solemn space, and also I got to know myself while I made it. And I was actually, I've moved house recently, and I was going through old notebooks. Yeah. And like, it was not a happy time. Like, I was looking through some that was just some like journals I'd made, and I was like, flipping heck, mate, there's some bleak materials here. Yeah. You know, but I was really I really believed that it was worthwhile. Like, I thought, you know, it felt like the time was right to attempt it, and also like I wanted to self-produce, primarily just because I wanted it to be like I really believed in the vision of it. Like, I could hear, before I'd even made it, like I'd gigged the songs in order before I'd hit record. And so I knew, like, I worked the songs out live, and I knew that emotionally, like, the response kind of flowed in a particular way that I really appreciated. And it turned into something like, I did a gig in 2018. No, maybe it was 2019, before the pandemic. And I played like pretty much the record in full, not exactly in order, but more or less. And an audience member who knew me through a different context, I was kind of nervous. I was kind of nervous to hear their opinion of the gig, and they said that was really life affirming. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that was the goal. And the King of Misery, the title was actually a joke. Yeah. Sent to me. Like, my friend Stephen Chu, who did the painting on the artwork. Yeah. He'd done this painting of me, and he texted me with the caption "The King of Misery" is a joke, and I was like, mate, that's actually a really good title. Yeah. And I'm gonna use that. And that's where the vision was born, in a way.
Well, you've got to laugh, like you were saying, you're going through the journals and how it was pretty bleak stuff. Like, you've got to laugh through these things, haven't you? Because we all, it's all as real and fragile and very vulnerable it is, but equally you kind of got to laugh, haven't you? That sometimes we have harder times and then other times, it's
you really do. And what's also really and a point that I think the album makes hopefully successfully is that my friends really carried me through that process, and they really it was such a gift to have their friendship and support while I made that record, because it wasn't like I knew what I was doing either. Like, I had to learn how to engineer. I didn't know how to record acoustic guitars properly. I managed to blag like some really good microphones, but it was all hustle, and then I finally, then I'd had to sit day in day out just like with my material and being like, oh god, and like worrying about every take, and I recorded the guitars. I decided to record the guitars and vocals at the same time. So I had to there were so many challenges, things to be miserable about during that. I complained all of the way. Like, I remember my friend Chris, I would call him up and be like, oh man, I'm really struggling, man. He's like, you don't actually have to do this.
You don't have to put yourself in, by the way.
And I was just like, no. And my dad was like, can you just turn this thing in? And I was like, no, it's not ready yet. And my friend Ryan was like, come out. Like, I went to my friend Ryan's house and like I spent a weekend just editing stems at his house in his flat in Manchester. And then, loads of friends just sort of stepped in and just encouragement and said, look, okay, they were like, some people were just like, we don't get why you're fully doing this, but actually, I think like my friend Alex Milne and my friend Adam from the band Divorce. Alex was in a band called Cat Milk, who were brilliant. They were really loving in that period as well. Like, sometimes when you go through like an existential process, like making an album, it can really bring out like the worst in your insecurities.
Yeah.
And they just had nothing but love for me and really, really helped me. And so I'm so happy that the record finishes on that song. I'm grateful for my friends, because it is that friendship that it's as valuable as food. Do you know what I mean, in terms of sustenance?
Yeah, for sure. And the arc of the album, which, like you said, is guilt through to gratitude at the end. Let's play Him.
Sweet.
This is stunning. I want to talk more about it after, because you've got some friends and family, haven't you, doing backing vocals on this. So let's hear it and then we'll chat more with Daudi Matsiko. This is Him from the album The King of Misery. So this is Daudi Matsiko and Him, the track from The King of Misery. Daudi's my guest on this month's show, in the studio, live today. That is just such a beautiful track. Can you talk to me a bit about the evolution of it? And there's that sort of those saxophones in that organ part, and then there were friends and family on it. It
ended up being produced really organically. So it was the fourth time I'd attempted to record the song. I'd done a couple of versions with different producers, really good producers, but it just wasn't, like, it never really captured what I wanted it to capture. And so I recorded the bulk of the song. It was mostly not to click, so I recorded the vocals and the organelle at the same time, so you can hear the key clacking of the organelle. It's this little miniature keyboard synthesizer with wooden keys, round wooden keys. So when you play them, it's like really tactile. And so that's what you can hear coming through the vocal mic. And then, so I recorded that, and then I did the mid section I did it all. I recorded everything in Ableton. It was getting a bit nerdy, but and then I automated, like, I can do it live. The oscillation, that kind of like the big rise thing. But I basically like kind of created that middle break. I really wanted it to kind of feel like a nice groove, and so I recorded that. And the shaker is a Rooibos tea bag.
Who would have known?
Exactly. Do you know? It was just really like kind of. It was really, and then I sampled loads of friends clicking and clapping. And there's like a producer called Hieroglyphics who he's like a drum and bass guy. and then like the owner of Jam Cafe in Nottingham, Bradley, and just loads of mates clicking and clapping in that. So all those clicks and claps, and the taiko drum was borrowed off another mate in Nottingham, Tom Toll, and he runs Running Circle Records, and just let me a drum to hit. and so that was like the first part of it. And then my friend Felix from the band Divorce, I don't know if you know those guys. Yeah, so Felix, we're really good mates, and he came over. He's like, oh, let me hear what you're working on. So he came over, and I was like, oh, I'm really struggling with this tune. And he was like, oh, can I put some BVs on it? I was like, yeah. And so immediately it was like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. Like his vocal in the second parts of each verse were really lovely. And then I was like, oh, wow, I wonder if I can get more vocals on this. And then it just kind of went a bit haywire. So like, it got a bit, it just got it got really ambitious really quickly. So like Felix laid his vocals down. It was so gorgeous. And then in the final verse, I was like, oh, I wonder if I can get loads of friends and family to sing this last verse. And so I went round and recorded my mum, my dad, my brother. My sister recorded her part on her phone and sent it to me. My friend Leah, Adam Peter Smith from the band Divorce as well. Cat Milk, so Alex from Cat Milk. Alice Robbins from Grain Mother in Nottingham. Loads of mates just sang on this record. And everybody sang out of time because I didn't use a click.
Yeah.
And so I then had to like, I don't know if this is too much to tell everybody, but I had to learn how to like time stretch and like get everyone right in the same space, and it just worked out so well. And my friend George as well, he's a vicar, and like just it was just a really cool, it was just a really beautiful thing. It just kind of organically kind of grew. And then the saxophones as well, my friend Roger played sax, and he did it quite early on the track, and then I just kind of muted his part because I didn't really think I hadn't got round to like to contextualizing it, and towards the end of the process I was like, oh, this is really missing something. What's it missing? I was like, oh, what's that stem? And I clicked, I was like, oh no, there's some killer sax on it, and it was really beautiful. So I was so gassed to have him on the track, and it just all kind of came together, and I was obsessed with it. Like the way I made the record was so insular. Like I did it all in a terraced house in Nottingham in Forest Fields, and I spent about 2.5 weeks just on that middle and end section of him, just like in editing like the arrangement. And it got to the point where this is kind of the last track I worked on the album. I've been looking at the same like 8-bar section for like what felt like a week. So just those 8 bars over and over again. And I remember just distinctly having this feeling. I was like, flipping heck, mate, you've been doing this for ages. And I don't know and I was like, I don't know where I am with this. Does this even work? And I remember just being like, right, stop. Just like there was a couch behind my desk, and I was like, just sit on the couch, hit play, and just listen to it and just see. And then I hit play, and I did that, and I sat and listened to the track. I think I might have even lied down and listened to the track. And then at the end of the track, I just burst into tears because I had all this pressure. I was like, it's over.
This great feat of production.
Well, also because I didn't know what I was doing. There was no I don't classify. I'm like I think it's fair to say I'm a producer, but I don't. I have a lot of imposter syndrome about that kind of stuff. Like I'm not a producer's producer. I'm just like I just sort of just shot from the hip and went for it, and so.
You did a pretty great job.
Oh, thank you.
And that 8-bar rabbit hole that you were in.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was nuts. And then my friend Chris did add some bass synth in the final verse and in the midsection for me, just to like give it a bit more heaviness. And then Scrimshire, like the final version you hear is like, I did my job, but then Adam Scrimshire mixed it. Yeah. And he approached the whole album with such grace and kindness and like reverence for what it was trying to do. It's just, when I hear it, I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that's what I did.
Yeah, you must be so proud. So proud of these tracks.
I'm really grateful that I'm just so grateful for its existence.
Yeah. Let's play another track from the record, and we'll talk more afterwards. But tell me a bit about Darby's Dose.
So Darby's Dose is my response to learning about the story of an enslaved man called Darby. He was so Darby's Place is actually he was tortured and murdered by a man from Lincoln called Thomas Thistlewood, who was a slave overseer. And he made this, Thistlewood had this diary that he wrote, and he described all the atrocities he committed. He was, I'm going to mention something, I hope to give a trigger warning to people. Yeah. So he was big fat warning on this. He was a serial rapist, right. Like hundreds.
Oh God.
Like,
yeah,
just an unfathomable amount of sexual violence. And what he did to Darby was so dehumanizing.
Yeah.
And also the way it was described was so casual. Like, it was just what he was up to. And it was, and then the actual punishment of Darby's dose, the final, it was what happened to Darby was he went through several stages of torture, and then it culminated in this act that was so depraved and so it's a jarring thing to even learn about.
Yeah.
And I just remember reading his story and just being like, you know, if I talk about it at gigs, the room tightens up. Like, it's like it will make you sick to your stomach.
Yeah.
And so
like a visceral reaction to the horror of it.
Yeah. And then the song itself, and I remember, like, you know, when I learned that story, I just wept. You know, like. And it was around the time, like, it was a bit before 2020 when I wrote it, but it was part of a period of time when I was discovering about Great Britain's legacy of slavery and dehumanization and exploitation, and about how much, you know, and I was really kind of grappling with how much of our country that, you know, this is like, as crazy as it sounds what I'm about to say, this might be the greatest time to ever be alive. However,
but
like, there's all this kind of trauma, and
so much,
and that's just looking, you know, that's just specifically looking at this country. You know, just, you know, maybe it's not the greatest time to be alive. It depends really. But just like, you know, if I was born in the 60s or if I was born in the 1800s, my life would be entirely different.
Yeah.
But there's still, you know, this unacknowledged shadow, and you know, the foundations that the country that we love is built on. There's some real rot in there, and there's some real grief and unacknowledged trauma, and it's ongoing, you know, and it plays out in different scenarios across the world as well. But yeah, I just found myself, you know, for example, like, I learned about the church's involvement in the slave trade, and how when they sold their slaves, they branded them like women and children, and to let people know they were property of what was the phrase? It was like property of the house of God or something. It's like mad like that. Like, just like, it's so far from what that religion professes to hold as its core tenet. And, you know, and we, you know, in British society, we want to hold each other in, well, the idealist in me is like, everybody will want to ideally be treated as equal, and all this kind of stuff, and you know, giving people a fair chance, and this really is it's the opposite of that. And yeah, it's just you know, every time I come across these stories, because it's something that's not been acknowledged, like, it's still a shock for people to learn.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a really hard thing to hold in two hands. You know, you love the place you live, but also there's, like, you know, what do we do with this?
Yeah.
This thing. And so that's, you know, so that was just, so the song, sorry, I've rambled on, but the song is sort of just my exploration of my own feelings of that. Like, I don't have any answers. I don't have any, you know, at least, you know, one day at a time, basically. Just being able to look at it dead on and just hold that space, it's helpful. I don't, you know, some people might disagree with me. you know, I've definitely come across people who are like, oh, why are you bringing all this stuff up? And it's like, man,
it's important to have the uncomfortable conversations.
it really
isn't it?
is. And it changes how we interact with the world, you know, like knowing what the ground that you stand on was built on makes you even, you know, it sounds insane to even use this word in this context, but having gratitude for those people that you know, that existed and provided us with, it's an impossible thing to even comprehend, really. Yeah, I just, you know, I think if we holding those memories, holding that history and making it part of our day-to-day and our future is so important, and it makes us better, you know, like it doesn't fix anything, it doesn't solve it. I think we're the better for knowing. And I don't know what, you know, I don't know where that leads. But I think the acknowledgement is, you know, otherwise we're just in our heads of the sand, we're just walking around blind. And I don't think people, you're doing yourself a disservice if that's the way you want to live.
Well, let's hear it.
Sorry.
No, let's hear it.
Thank you so much.
That certainly sets into context this song. Daudi Matsiko, Daudi's Dose. So this is Daudi's Dose, and it's Daudi Matsiko, my live guest on the show. Daudi, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Just hit us quickly before we say bye with your live dates.
So doing a bit of a tour. So 23rd of March, playing the Traverse Theatre in Edinburgh. Gulliver's in Manchester on the 27th. Trades Club Headham Bridge on the 28th of March. Got a launch show in Nottingham on the 29th. Leeds on the 30th. But then also I'm back in London for Shake the High Road on the 5th of April. So there's some cool dates coming up.
And Daudi Matsiko is where they can find you online.
Yeah, just at DAUDI.
Yes.
On
Amazing.
Insta, all that stuff.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Massive love.